Chapter 51, Just Standing Together, I Feel Guilty. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Su-yi gave Chef Wang a knowing look. It's not about what he'd do with it, it's the principle. This kind of thieving is just awful. I bet someone wants to copy it. If he'd just asked, I might have shared, but he went and stole it, so now everyone needs to be on alert. We all make a living with our skills. Everyone's got their secret sauce, right? If someone's eyeing you, trying to steal your edge to replace you, that's just messed up. But it was dinner prep time, and all the cooks were around. They all nodded in agreement when Su-yi said that. Exactly. We're all working hard for our keep. Trying to sneak around to get ahead. That's low. I asked Su-yi for some last time, and she gave me a spoonful, no problem. Only people with something to hide would resort to stealing. Master Ma stood up, clearly ticked off. Just because we didn't catch him this time doesn't mean we won't next time. Everyone, keep your eyes peeled. If you see anyone doing something shady, report them immediately, and we'll send them packing. Then he looked at Su-yi again. Don't worry, Chef Wang and I have your back. Even if we don't find the culprit, the cold dish station is yours. Right, Chef Wang. Chef Wang, suddenly losing his swagger, stammered, yeah, I didn't think someone would stoop to stealing the sauce like that. Thought it was for a prank. Don't sweat it, Su-yi, the cold dishes are all yours. Su-yi smirked. I'm not really worried about that. Just because you steal something doesn't mean you can replicate it. If it was that easy, no one would need to steal. Chef Wang was fuming inside at being called a thief. He was burning with rage but couldn't say anything outright. Finally, he spat out sarcastically, well, it's almost fall. How long do you think you can keep selling those cold dishes? Su-yi blinked. Thanks for the concern, Chef Wang, but we've already got a plan for that. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Seeing her so confident, Chef Wang was suddenly curious. She couldn't just start cooking the main entrees, could she? So what else could she possibly sell? Probably just blowing smoke. After lunch, Su-yi decided to head over to the logistics department herself. She wanted to ask about the dorm situation and see if she could get a single room if they took her kids into consideration. That would be amazing. If not, oh well, after yesterday's spat with Zhou Jinchuan, it'd be awkward to ask him to pull strings again, seeing that she didn't even know where the logistics department was. Su Shaoqin offered to tag along. They went straight over with the note from Master Ma, the guy at the desk looked up after seeing the name and asked, "Are you Su-yi?" Su-yi was a little surprised. "Yeah, that's me." "Do you know me?" He nodded. "Captain Zhou had someone come by yesterday to give us a heads up." He grabbed a list and a key, handing it to her. "Is the single dorm in the first row of the family housing okay?" Su-yi grabbed it and thanked him. "Yes, thank you so much." He nodded. "Great, we had someone clean it up this morning, so you can move in tomorrow. I'll get someone to help you with the bedding, too. If everything's good, just sign here." Su-yi and Su Shaoqin had spent the walk over concocting a whole list of excuses, but she got the key without saying a word. How could she not be happy? Su-yi quickly signed where he indicated. As they left the logistics department with the key, Su-yi was still a little stunned. Su Shaoqin asked, all wide-eyed, seriously, what's the deal with Captain Zhou being so nice to you? Does he have a crush on you or something? Su-yi snapped back to reality. Don't be ridiculous. He's letting me have the room so I can look after his kids. After a moment's thought, she added, Xiao Wu must have asked him. Otherwise, how could they have both come to the same conclusion? Su Shaoqin looked unconvinced. You're kidding yourself, right? Can't you see it? Every time Captain Zhou comes to the cafeteria to find you, he looks at you differently. No wonder people are always gossiping about you too. Even just standing together, you don't exactly look innocent. Su Shaoqin was on a roll. She sighed dramatically. My poor brother. I think he's completely out of the running. Sui couldn't help but laugh, but she just ignored her. She headed straight for the cafeteria, but she couldn't help but wonder, Zhou Jinchuan sure moves fast. In that case, she'd make time to move tomorrow. It would be awkward to keep staying there. The next day at noon, as soon as the cafeteria window closed, Zhang Tianhua told Su Shaoqin and Su Yi to get started. While he would stay behind and finish packing, the two went straight to the family compound. Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan wanted to help, too. Actually, Su Yi didn't have much stuff, just a few sets of clothes she'd brought and some toiletries like a wash basin and towels. It took less than half an hour to pack. After packing her things, Su Yi cleaned the room again. She took off the sheets and pillowcases that she and Wan had been using, washed them, and then pulled out Zhou Jinchuan's original sheets and pillowcases from his closet and put them back on the beds. After she finished, Su Yi looked around. She saw that the room was almost like it had been when she first arrived, so she closed the door feeling satisfied. Before leaving, she gave Xiao Wu and Wan a few words of advice. Yi Xiao Wu looked confused. Sister Su, don't talk like you're not coming back. You're living right nearby. You should come visit me and Wan often. Yi Wan also grabbed Su Yi's hand. Wan wants to see your new place, too. Su Yi smiled and said, okay, I'll take you over now to see it. Su Yi's dorm building was in front of the family compound. Right on the way back to the small compound, it had 3 floors, and Su Yi's room was the one farthest down the hall on the 2nd floor. It was far from the stairs and the entrance, so it was nice and quiet. The room was only about 150 square feet, with just a single bed, a desk and chair, and a wardrobe in the corner, nothing else. It couldn't compare to the courtyard, but Su Yi was thrilled to have a single room. Even Su Shaoqin, who was standing next to her, was envious. This is so great. You're all alone with no one to bother you. She helped Su Yi clean and wash. Chapter 52. Did you two have a fight? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Once everything was unpacked, the room was so cluttered you couldn't even walk. Su Yi quickly asked Xiao Wu to take Wan home. After walking them to the door, Su Yi paused and said to Yi Xiao Wu, when you get home, call Uncle Zhou and tell him we're back, so you two won't be scared sleeping alone tonight. Yi Xiao Wu looked up at Su Yi. Sister Su, why don't you just call Uncle Zhou? Did you guys have a fight? Su Yi forced a smile. No, I'm just swamped. I forgot. Yi Xiao Wu nodded thoughtfully and left. That night, Su Yi, exhausted from the day, showered and went to bed. Staring at the unfamiliar, quiet room, she felt a pang of discomfort. She was used to having the 2 kids around, always chattering until she fell asleep, especially cuddling with soft Wan every night. Now, sleeping alone felt really strange. She closed her eyes, but her mind only raced faster. Just as Su Yi was tossing and turning, a knock echoed at the door. Startled, Su Yi asked who it was, and in the next moment, she heard Xiao Wu and Wan's voices. What are you doing here so late? Wan was crying for you, and she wouldn't go to sleep. Uncle Zhou and I tried to calm her down, but nothing worked. Su Yi quickly scooped up Wan and glanced down the hallway. It's so dark out there. Did you two come alone? Yi Xiao Wu pointed downstairs. Uncle Zhou's waiting downstairs. Su Yi murmured in acknowledgement and quickly peeked downstairs. She saw a familiar figure standing under the streetlight. He seemed to sense her gaze and started to look up. Su Yi quickly averted her eyes, her heart skipping a beat. Okay, it's late. You go back. Wan can sleep with me tonight. She quickly hurried Wan back inside. Closing the door, Su Yi poured warm water into a basin and helped Wan wash her face. Then she chuckled, see for yourself, isn't it better to be all clean and shiny than crying like a little kitten? Wan grinned sheepishly. Wan missed her sister. She couldn't sleep and couldn't help crying. Su Yi playfully tapped her nose. You're about to start preschool. Aren't you afraid your brother and uncle will laugh at you? Then she snuggled Wan under the covers, finding a comfortable position to hold her, and Wan giggled. Uncle said I could come see my sister. Oh. What else did Uncle say? Uncle also said everyone has to learn to adjust. Sui nodded. That was true, not just the kid, but she needed to adjust too. After that little adventure, it was already daylight when Sui woke up, oversleeping. Sui quickly woke up Yi Nuanyuan, who was still sound asleep. Nuanyuan, aren't you supposed to register today? Just then, a knock came at the door. It was Yi Xiaowu, here to pick up Nuanyuan. Sui quickly got dressed and opened the door. Yi Xiaowu was holding 2 lunch boxes. Uncle asked me to get Nuanyuan. Uncle packed breakfast. Sui nodded and helped Yi Nuanyuan get dressed, wash her face, and braid her hair. Sister Su, do you want to come with us to register Nuanyuan later? Sui hesitated. Is Captain Zhou going? Xiaowu nodded. Uncle Zhou's waiting downstairs. Sui quickly sped things up. Then I won't go. Your sister's got to get to the cafeteria. You can find me there at lunchtime. I'll make sweet and sour pork for you. She quickly stuffed the buns into Yi Nuanyuan's hand. Hurry up. Don't be late for registration. It was really windy the second half of the night. When Sui went outside, she could definitely feel the cooler weather. Fall was really on its way. Su Shaoqin had said that fall in the northwest was really short, and they would be in heavy jackets in a few days. At lunch, there were noticeably fewer people eating cold dishes than during the summer. Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were so worried that they couldn't even eat their meat. Sister Sui, can you think of something? If things keep going like this, how will we make it through the winter? Yeah, Chef Wang says we can forget about cooking anything. Sui figured the time was right. She asked Zhang Tianhua to go to the warehouse. Last time I went to get something, I remember a bunch of dusty clay pots. Remember those? Zhang Tianhua thought for a moment. Yeah, I asked about them. They said they only get used once a year during the spring festival reception for the army. They haven't had a chance to use them since, so they're just piled up there collecting dust. Sui nodded. Then go ask if we can get a few. We can try making clay pot dishes. Zhang Tianhua agreed and headed out. I'll go ask. There are so many, they should give us a few if we want them. Maybe it was because those pots were truly useless, but the warehouse readily agreed and told Zhang Tianhua to take some back. Sui got her plan in motion and took Su Shaoqin to prepare the ingredients. Su Shaoqin looked at the tofu skin, bean sprouts, fungus, and potatoes in the basin, a little puzzled. Aren't we making casserole? Aren't these ingredients for cold dishes? Sui smiled. Wash some more cabbage and soak some vermicelli. You'll see when it's ready. When the clay pot was bubbling, Sui added some leftover meat from lunch. Tianhua, go get Master Ma and tell him you need to talk to him about something. Zhang Tianhua was watching the clay pot bubble with interest when he suddenly heard he had to get Master Ma. He immediately caught on and ran out grinning. Okay. I'll make sure to get him. Master Ma was taking a break when Zhang Tianhua suddenly invited and urged him to come over. He mumbled as he walked, what good news. So mysterious. Zhang Tianhua smiled. There's something delicious. You'll see when you get there. As they were talking, the two had already arrived at the small kitchen. Oh, what smells so good? Sui had just made chili oil and was about to scoop it into the casserole. When she saw Master Ma arrive, she asked with a smile, Master Ma, do you like spicy food? Master Ma was confused, but answered honestly, as long as it's not too spicy, I'm okay. Sui smiled. Then we'll make it slightly spicy. Then she took the casserole off the fire with tongs. Master Ma, we specifically asked you to come help us taste it. You people from your hometown have the best taste buds in our cafeteria. Master Ma was a little embarrassed by the compliment, but he was drawn to the casserole on the table after looking at it. Even though the pot was off the fire, it was still bubbling hot, like it was boiling. Inside were all kinds of colorful ingredients, with red chili oil and green garlic leaves floating on top. Just looking at it made your mouth water. Is this the new dish you mentioned? Chapter 53, it's just that we don't have any intersection anymore. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sui saw Master Ma was receptive and quickly handed him a spoon. It's getting cold, and cold dishes aren't moving. We're thinking about selling clay pots instead. Could you give this a try and see what you think? Master Ma took a spoonful of the soup. Good soup. Made with bean sprouts, I bet. Then he tasted a few more bites. This is really good. Warms you right up. It's a great idea, but you know how it is in the winter with vegetables. I can't promise you much. Sui smiled. Master Ma, the vegetables we're using are pretty common. If it works out, I'll add some meat dishes, meatballs, fried fish, crispy pork, just a little bit of each in different pots for variety. Master Ma picked up some with his chopsticks and examined them closely. Sure enough, the vegetables were nothing fancy, he chuckled. Meat and vegetables, soup and a main dish all in one. Perfect with steamed buns or rice in this weather. Sui and the others were relieved by Master Ma's praise. So, Master Ma, about getting these. Yeah, we'll take the casseroles. I bet there'll be a line out the door. What else do you need? Sui quickly replied, just tell the warehouse we need the casseroles. No problem, I'll let them know. With Master Ma's approval, Sui's cold dish station was quickly transformed into a casserole window. It rained for 2 days straight, and it was getting colder and colder. The cold dish window, which had been dead, suddenly came alive, with the delicious smells spreading. This time, Sui didn't need to find people to stand in line. Customers came looking for the aroma. Hey, what are you guys serving? Su Xiaoqin and Zhang Tianhua eagerly explained, it's a clay pot. Over a dozen dishes in each, and you can choose your meat. Want to try one? Looks amazing. I'll take the meatballs, extra chili, please. Normally, even hot dishes cool off before you finish, but these clay pots stayed steaming hot all the way through. Some people mixed in rice, others ate with steamed buns. Just as Master Ma predicted, a long line quickly formed at their window. The only problem was the line was too long. You had to get there early. The three of them were sweating in the back. Chef Wang, bundled up in his coat, grumbled, is that casserole really that good? I don't believe it. Despite his doubts, he had someone sneak him a portion so he could try it in the back. Turns out, it was delicious. Bai Ruolin and Qin Yinfeng hadn't gone near the cold dish window since Sui started working there. No matter what anyone said, they refused to be tempted. One day, they decided to have dinner at the cafeteria together. Halfway there, it started to rain, a cold, miserable rain. Seeing everyone lined up for the steaming casseroles, they couldn't help but want some. Hey, Qin, let's get a casserole today, okay? Qin Yinfeng thought he'd misheard her. But that's Suyi's window. Bai Ruolin pursed her lips. Look, she's not even out there right now. And even if she was, she's not going to refuse to serve us if we order nicely, is she? Qin Yinfeng considered that. It was true, and he wanted Bai Ruolin to move on from whatever issues she had with Sui. He immediately went to stand in line. Actually, Sui had already spotted them when they arrived, but at this point, she just wanted them to stop causing trouble. So she pretended not to see them. After finally finishing up at the cafeteria, Xia Xiaojun rushed over, looking anxious. Sui, do you still have any casseroles left? I just got back and heard you switched to selling them. Am I too late? Su Xiaoqin smiled. You're late. We sold out. Come early tonight. Sui saw Xia Xiaojun's disappointed expression. After a pause, she called out, come on in and wait a minute. I'll make you a bowl. Xia Xiaojun happily went around to the back. Seeing Xia Xiaojun, Sui realized she hadn't seen Zhou Jinchuan in ages. It was like he'd disappeared. Just now, Xia Xiaojun said she'd been out. Could it be that Zhou Jinchuan hadn't been around the past few days? But Xiao Wu and Wan hadn't mentioned anything. Thinking about it, Sui asked tentatively, Xia, did you and Captain Zhou go out of town again? Xia Xiaojun quickly shook her head. No, I went out with Captain Lu this time. Captain Zhou didn't go. Oh, Sui said. So he hadn't gone anywhere, they just hadn't crossed paths, she thought about it. He was a captain, she was a cook. If it weren't for the kids, they might never have met. Sui was lost in thought, and the casserole was already bubbling. She quickly finished cooking it and brought it to the table. Here you go. Have a taste. Xia Xiaojun took a big spoonful. Oh man, this is great. Hey, Sui, can I take one of these to go? I want to bring one back for Captain Zhou. Sui paused. Sure, hasn't Captain Zhou eaten yet? Xia Xiaojun hummed. I went back to the office and asked him. He said he ate, but I bet he just grabbed something quick. He hasn't had much of an appetite lately. Maybe he'll like this. Sui nodded and silently started cooking another pot. After it was done, she added a little chili oil and put it in a bag. Grab some rice on your way out. Xia Xiaojun happily agreed and hurried back with the casserole. Back at the office, Zhou Jinchuan was still working at his desk. Captain Zhou, I just got back and found they're selling casseroles at the cafeteria. I got you one to try. Zhou Jinchuan didn't even look up. I'm busy right now. Just leave it. But Captain Zhou, it's still hot. It won't be good cold. Then you eat it. I'm not hungry. Xia Xiaojun patted his full belly. Nah, I already ate, but Sui made this one specially. I'd feel bad if you didn't eat it. With that, Xia Xiaojun picked up the casserole to leave. Wait a minute. Zhou Jinchuan finally looked up from his papers. What did you say that food was? Suyi's casserole. Xia Xiaojun grinned. You wouldn't believe it, Captain Zhou. Suyi's serving casseroles now, and the line's out the door every day. When I got there today, they were all sold out. Sui heard we hadn't eaten and made us one specially. Chapter 54 Large-Scale Social Death Scene. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhou Jinchuan coughed and stood up. I wasn't grilling you. He walked over to the small table and sat down. Xia Xiaojun grinned. Oh, so you want to try it, Captain Zhou? Before he finished, Zhou Jinchuan had already popped the lid off the casserole. He'd never seen one like it before, but something about it felt familiar. Xia Xiaojun was practically bouncing with excitement. Suyi's totally playing favorites. The one I had wasn't nearly as loaded as yours, Captain Zhou. Looks like she packed in all kinds of meat. Realizing what he said might make Zhou Jinchuan angry, he jumped up, ready to bolt. Well, if you don't need anything, Captain Zhou, I'll head out. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at the time. You busy right now? Xia Xiaojun hesitated. Not really. I could hang for a bit. Zhou Jinchuan didn't respond, just started eating in silence. After a few bites, he asked, You said a lot of people were eating casserole? Yeah, Sui was sweating bullets, running around like crazy. Anything else she say? Xia Xiaojun looked up, surprised. This conversation felt a little off. She didn't say much. Oh, wait, she did ask if you'd been out lately. I told her you'd been stuck in the compound. Hey, Captain Zhou, did you guys have a fight? You're both acting kinda weird. Zhou Jinchuan pursed his lips. Nope. Xia Xiaojun, right. Meanwhile, Sui was packing up to head home. As soon as she stepped outside, she saw Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan squatting by the door, giggling and trying to catch raindrops. What are you two doing out here? Sui asked, hurrying over. Yi Xiaowu held up an umbrella. It's raining. We thought you might not have one. A wave of warmth washed over her. Suyi's eyes stung a little. In this huge military base, these two little ones cared about her. That was enough. She told Xiaowu to hold the umbrella high, grabbed another one, and dashed into the rain with Nuanyuan's hand in hers. Sui, the rain's getting worse. Come back to our place for a bit. Sui was worried about them catching a cold. Okay, let's get you two home. get you changed, and drink some hot chocolate. That the three of them hurried back to the small courtyard. Even with umbrellas, they were pretty damp. Sui quickly grabbed towels and started drying them off, then boiled water and made hot chocolate. Don't just worry about us, Sui. Drink some too. Oh, right. Uncle Xie got the photos back today. Let's go look at them. Sui saw Yi Xiaowu practically vibrating with excitement. Hold on, finish your chocolate first. I'll go get them. Where'd you put them? On the table in Uncle Zhou's room. Sui, who had already stood up, froze. Zhou Jinchuan wasn't there, and the table was close to the door. It shouldn't be a big deal for her to run in and grab them. Plus, his bedroom door was open. With that thought, Sui quickly slipped inside. Sure enough, there was the photo studio envelope on the bedside table. She reached out to grab it. A photo slipped out and fell to the floor. Sui knelt to pick it up. It was a group shot of the four of them. Xiaowu and Nuanyuan were beaming, their eyes squeezed shut with happiness. Even Zhou Jinchuan, usually so stoic, had a rare smile on his face. Seeing the photo, Sui couldn't help but remember the day they took it. It felt like ages ago. She picked up the photo, ready to leave, when she heard a familiar voice from the doorway. You didn't get soaked out there, did you? Sui jumped, reflexively closing the door behind her. It was pouring outside. Why was Zhou Jinchuan back already? It was bad enough he was back, but she was trapped in his room. If he saw her leaving, how embarrassing would that be? This is a social disaster waiting to happen. Seriously, where's a sinkhole when you need one? Zhou Jinchuan had rushed back from the office, worried about the kids in the heavy rain. He walked in to find 2 umbrellas by the door and 3 bowls of hot chocolate on the living room table. Then, he heard the familiar voice. Zhou Jinchuan stopped, looking toward his room. The door was half closed. Was she in there? Yi Xiaowu glanced slyly at the bedroom door. Uncle Zhou, Uncle Xie dropped off the photos from the studio at lunch. You should go look at them. They're on the table in your room. Zhou Jinchuan grunted. I know. Sui, that little snitch. Her face burned. Sui was about to throw open the door and explain everything. Suddenly, the phone rang in the living room. Zhou Jinchuan grunted again, hung up the phone, and told the kids, gotta run. Glad you're okay. Stay inside and don't go out playing. Yi Xiao's disappointment was obvious. He started to say something, but Zhou Jinchuan had already hurried out the door. Hearing him leave, Sui breathed a sigh of relief. She grabbed the photo and came out. Was someone just here? Yi Nuanyuan pointed toward the door. Uncle Zhou came, then left. Sui looked at Yi Xiao's face and smiled. Here's the photo. You two should take a look. The rain was still coming down, and Sui didn't have much to do, so, she stayed with the kids for a while, helping them tidy up. Realizing the rain wasn't letting up anytime soon, she made sure they had dinner before she left. Don't go to the cafeteria tonight. Just heat up the food in the pot and don't go out, so you don't catch a cold. You have school in the morning. The kids readily agreed. Sui grabbed an umbrella and headed for the cafeteria. Probably because of the weather, the cafeteria was emptier than usual. People ate quickly and left. Seeing an opportunity, Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua urged Sui to celebrate. Sui agreed, remembering how hard they'd worked getting the hang of making casseroles. Let me talk to Master Ma. We can buy some leftover ingredients from the cafeteria to make a late-night snack. Zhang Tianhua piped up. I'll get some soda, Su Shaoqin said. I'll stay and start cleaning and washing the veggies. The three of them split up. When Sui returned, she saw another person with Su Shaoqin, her brother, Su Bin. Sui looked at Su Shaoqin, surprised. She saw her whispering guiltily, I swear, I didn't call him. He just showed up with something for me. Talk about a coincidence. Sui rolled her eyes. Well, Comrade Su should definitely stay for our late-night snack, and wait for the rain to stop. After all, he was Su Xiaoqin's brother. When the four of them finished celebrating, the rain had started to let up. Sui was ready to head home. Let's get back before it starts raining again. Su Xiaoqi nodded. It's dark and slippery out there. Let my brother walk you back. He lives in that direction anyway. Chapter 55 Late Night Visit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the way back, Sui and Su Bin walked at a distance. Everything was fine, but as they neared the dorm, Su Bin hurried to catch up. Hey Su, can I ask you something? Sui turned, surprised. Sure, Su. Are you and Zhou seeing each other? No. Would you want to be my girlfriend? No. Caught off guard by Su Bin's sudden confession, Sui instinctively refused. After she did, she felt a little rude, but decided directness was best. Still, she was baffled. Were all the guys this forward? Or was it just a military thing? She'd barely met Su Bin, only exchanged a few words. They just happened to eat together today. Where was this coming from? Su Bin, stunned by her rejection, nodded awkwardly. Okay, well, I'll let you get back to your room. Sui forced a smile. Thanks for the thought, Su. I hope you find the right person soon. Finally, she gave in to some tact. With that, Sui headed straight upstairs. She turned on the light, changed, and washed her face when a knock came at the door. Who could that be? Sui froze, worried Su Bin was back for another try. Who is it? She whispered. Silence. Even more nervous, Sui said, I'm not opening the door unless you say who it is. Then, two words came through the door, it's me. The familiar voice stunned Sui. Was that Zhou Jinchuan? An hour earlier, Zhou Jinchuan returned home to find Yi Xiaowu setting out a steaming dinner. Uncle, Su cooked this. Want some? Zhou Jinchuan glanced at the simple meal, rice, fried tofu, and sweet and sour pork. Have you eaten? Yep, this is for you. Zhou Jinchuan had only grabbed a few bites at night, and now he was hungry. Seeing the kids had eaten, he sat down and started in. Happy he was eating Suyi's food, Yi Xiaowu grabbed some photos. Uncle Zhou, you haven't seen the pictures yet. He handed them over. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at them. You and Nuanyuan took some great pictures. Yi Xiaowu grinned. You and Su took great ones too. She helped us clean up and cook, and forgot to take the photos before she left. You don't have anything to do after dinner, why don't you go for a walk and give them to Su? Zhou Jinchuan glanced outside. The rain had stopped, but it was late. Why go for a walk? But he nodded. Okay, you and Nuanyuan go to bed. I'll take them over. Yi Xiaowu breathed a sigh of relief. He was really worried every day. Seeing the late hour, Zhou Jinchuan grabbed the photos and headed out without cleaning up. When he got to the bottom of Suyi's building, he noticed her lights were off. Usually, he saw them on at this time. Had she gone to bed? Zhou Jinchuan waited for a while, but the lights stayed off. He was about to leave when he saw Sui coming down the path, a man standing not far away, watching her go inside. Zhou Jinchuan narrowed his eyes. He recognized the man as Su Bin. How were they together? After a moment, Zhou Jinchuan started walking over. Su Bin, still watching Suyi's building, saw someone approaching. He was about to leave, then recognized who it was. Captain Zhou, what are you doing here? Zhou Jinchuan said sternly, I'm going home. What are you doing here so late? Su Bin stood at attention. Reporting to the captain, just passing by. I'm heading back now. Zhou Jinchuan looked him over under the street light. Relax. It's not training. No need to be so formal. Su Bin was confused. He smiled awkwardly. Zhou Jinchuan studied his face, but didn't see any dimples. Could this not be the Bin Sui mentioned? The thought brought Zhou Jinchuan a surge of relief. It's late. Get back to your room. Su Bin, dismissed, practically vanished. After he left, Zhou Jinchuan looked up at the second floor. Seeing the lights were on, he hesitated, then went upstairs. After a hard-won knock, the other side asked suspiciously, "Who is it?" Zhou Jinchuan glanced around. The weather was not one to be staying outside. With confidence, he pulled an envelope from his pocket. "Xiao Wu said you forgot the photos this afternoon, so he asked me to bring them." Sui realized he didn't seem to be leaving right away. She quickly opened the door. "Want to come in for a bit?" Zhou Jinchuan nodded and entered. When Sui lived alone, the room felt spacious. Now, it suddenly felt too small to turn around in. "Have a seat, Captain Zhou. I'll get you some water." There was only one chair. After Sui brought the water, she sat on the bed. Silence filled the room. Zhou Jinchuan spoke first. "I saw Su Bin downstairs." "Did he walk you back?" Sui nodded awkwardly. "He was there." "Did he hear Su Bin confessing to me?" Zhou Jinchuan, "A confession, huh?" Sui chuckled nervously. "He went to the kitchen to see Su Xiaoqin. We just happened to walk back together." Zhou Jinchuan asked, "What do you think of Su Bin?" Sui looked surprised. "He's fine." "What's that supposed to mean?" "What does it matter what I think of him?" Zhou Jinchuan pursed his lips. "Xiao Wu said you cooked for them and helped clean up." "Thanks a lot. I've been busy the last couple of days." Sui relaxed as the conversation returned to normal. "It was nothing. I've been swamped at the cafeteria and haven't been around much." "It's okay. Xiao Wu's getting older. Don't worry too much." "Right." Silence returned. Zhou Jinchuan fiddled with his fingers and continued. "The rumors in the compound have died down, and the leader hasn't said anything. You don't have to worry. Things will go back to normal." Sui nodded. He added, "I didn't think things through last time. I hope it didn't affect you too much." Sui was uncomfortable with his sudden change in tone. It made the last incident even more awkward. She'd been shocked at the time, but it was over now. "It's okay. I've almost forgotten about it." Chapter 56, Find Ways to Hasten Marriage. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Zhou Jinchuan heard her, he wasn't sure if he should be happy or worried. He chugged the water she poured, then stood. "It's late. I'm heading back. Get some rest." Sui got up to see him out, then stopped. "Hey, Zhou, I wanted to ask, have you started the paperwork for Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolan's marriage yet?" "Not yet," he said. "Why? You in a hurry?" Sui was taken aback. "Oh, no. Why aren't they?" Zhou Jinchuan realized he'd messed up. "You want them to get married soon?" he added. Sui gave a forced laugh. "Yeah, the sooner the better. Save my family from making a scene and embarrassing me when I go home for Spring Festival." Zhou Jinchuan nodded. "Got it. I'll look into it." Sui took that with a grain of salt. It was autumn. Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolan were worried things might go south if they kept dragging their feet. These autumn nights are long, and bad ideas are easy to come by. She needed to find a way to light a fire under them. She didn't have to wait long. One day, Qin Yinfeng came to the window to pick up food alone. Bai Ruolan was nowhere to be seen. When Sui handed over the casserole, she whispered, "Meet me behind the cafeteria after you're done eating. I need to talk to you." Qin Yinfeng was stunned. He thought he'd misheard her, but when Sui glanced at him, he nodded quickly. As he walked away with his plate, Qin Yinfeng was a bundle of nerves. His heart was pounding. He was sure Sui couldn't have gotten over him that quickly. Captain Zhou proved it. If they were actually a thing, Sui wouldn't have moved out of his place and into the dorm. Qin Yinfeng wolfed down the casserole, barely noticing he was burning his tongue. Seeing him head toward the back, Sui quickly told Su Xiaoqin where she was going and followed. When Sui arrived behind the cafeteria, Qin Yinfeng was the only one there, so she walked over, keeping her distance. Qin, I wanted to ask you about, before she could finish, Qin Yunfeng stepped closer. You used to call me Yunfeng. Sui paused, fighting her revulsion. That was a long time ago, when I was young and dumb. It's not appropriate anymore. A shadow crossed Qin Yunfeng's face. You're right. That was a long time ago. Sui had no intention of reminiscing. I just wanted to know when you're planning on marrying by. Qin Yunfeng stared at her in disbelief, searching her face for the sadness he expected. You don't want me to marry her, Sui chuckled humorlessly. You're reading too much into it. Spring festival's coming up fast. What's going to happen when you go back if you're still not married? You know how everyone in the village thinks we're supposed to be together. If we both go back single, there's no telling what my family will do. They might try to kidnap me and drag me to your house. You need to make a decision, and quick. When Qin Yunfeng heard her, he couldn't hide his disappointment. He'd been hoping she still carried a torch for him. Now she was urging him to get married. Then he remembered what she'd said about her family and felt a shiver run down his spine. Back home, they weren't always reasonable. What if everyone insisted on getting him and Sui back together? He hesitated. If I marry by Ruolin right now, would you really be okay with it? Sui rolled her eyes. Is he worried I'm going to try to get my share of the wedding money? Don't worry, buddy. I already took care of that. Are you worried I won't be able to let you go? Qin Yunfeng pretended not to understand. I'm asking if you want me to marry her. Sui was starting to lose her patience. What's there to want or not want? If you keep dragging your feet, are you willing to give up everything you've worked so hard for? Are you willing to throw away your future? Think about it. Sui spun around and walked off. She'd barely taken 2 steps when she bumped into Bai Ruolin. Bai Ruolin had heard a rumor and rushed over to catch them in the act. She'd seen them talking from a distance. Before she could get close, Sui was already leaving. Bai Ruolin grabbed Sui's arm. You witch! Why did you call Qin out here? Why are you still chasing after him? Sui wrenched her arm free. What is wrong with you? What makes you think I'm chasing after him? I just asked him something. We're from the same village. Can't I even say hello? Bai Ruolin stammered. What could you possibly have to say to him? Sui smirked. I was asking about your wedding plans. He said he hasn't even considered getting married yet. Bai Ruolin glared at her suspiciously. What we do is none of your business, Sui scoffed. Of course it's none of my business. But don't forget what people think back home. If we both go back for Spring Festival single, our families are going to try to set us up. You wouldn't dare, Sui shrugged. It's not like I want to, but my family's pretty pushy. I couldn't talk them out of it if I tried. Bai Ruolin was flustered. What are you saying? Sui grinned. Just saying I'll do what my family tells me. You guys haven't actually gotten your marriage certificate yet, have you? Bai Ruolin panicked. Yes, we have. We've already applied and we're just waiting for it to be processed. If you try anything, I swear, Sui couldn't resist stirring the pot. Talk is cheap. Even if you applied, there's no guarantee it'll get approved. Let's talk after you actually have the certificate. Then, Sui turned and left, leaving the two of them to discuss things. Bai Ruolin was still trying to figure out what Sui meant. All she knew was that Sui was up to no good. She might say she couldn't control her family, but maybe she was secretly hoping that she and Qin Yunfeng wouldn't get married. That way, they could go back home for Spring Festival and let their families decide what happened. Seeing Qin Yunfeng standing there like an idiot, Bai Ruolin stormed over to him. Chapter 57 Preparing for the Winter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Yunfeng's heart sank when Bai Ruolin stormed over. Before he could even apologize, she blurted out, Sui sent me. Bai Ruolin followed up, clearly upset. Why'd you tell her we weren't rushing to get married? Qin Yunfeng felt stuck between a rock and a hard place. She asked point blank. Besides, she's our friend. Bai Ruolin scoffed, friend?
She's looking out for herself. She wants us to delay the wedding so she can rekindle things with you over the holidays. Qin Yunfeng's stomach twisted. Did she actually say that? Bai Ruolin took a dramatic pause. She wouldn't dare. Qin Yunfeng, who do you love, her or me? Qin Yunfeng hesitated. Didn't you say you weren't in a hurry? We agreed to wait until we met your family next year. Why are you suddenly blaming me? Bai Ruolin, clearly caught off guard, said, that was then, this is now. I'm telling my folks, and you get to decide if you're marrying me or not. Qin Yunfeng paused, then snapped to attention. Marry you. Of course. Bai Ruolin visibly relaxed. Okay, you said it. We're applying for the marriage license right now. We'll just have to wait the month, anyway. Qin Yunfeng stammered, right now. Bai Ruolin glared, sensing his reluctance. Back when she was the one playing hard to get, he acted like he couldn't wait to get hitched. Why was he suddenly dragging his feet? As they stood there, locked in a silent battle, Zhou Jinchuan happened to walk by. What's with the lovers spat in the middle of the day? Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin jumped, quickly stepping apart. Captain Zhou, you've got it all wrong. We were just chatting after dinner. Yeah, Captain Zhou, we're totally together. Zhou Jinchuan grunted. Even if you're together, keep the public displays of affection to yourselves. He lectured them a bit, then added, since you're so into each other, you should submit your marriage request ASAP. Get married while the getting's good, otherwise, this back and forth will start affecting morale. Qin Yunfeng and Bai Ruolin exchanged surprised glances and quickly agreed. When Su Yi heard the news, Bai Ruolin made a point of rubbing it in. Su Yi, give it up. Qin and I are getting our marriage application approved any day now. Captain Zhou himself expedited it. We're planning a banquet at the base after New Year's. Then, during the spring festival, Qin's taking me home to celebrate. Are you so bitter, you're afraid to go back to your hometown? Su Yi couldn't stop grinning. Don't worry, I'll be back. I wouldn't miss your wedding feasts for the world. Bai Ruolin saw Su Yi's happy face and thought Su Yi might be losing it. She rolled her eyes and flounced off. With that settled, Su Yi felt a huge weight lift. Work at the cafeteria was also going smoothly. Chef Wang hadn't tried anything since his failed attempt to steal the spices. Su Yi decided to use her vacation time to get ready for winter. She arranged to meet sisters Yao and Zheng early that morning, and the three slipped out before dawn. Their destination, the black market on the edge of town, where they planned to stock up. The spirit of economic reform hadn't quite reached this remote place, but the selection at the black market had definitely improved and the authorities weren't cracking down as hard as they used to. They were immediately surrounded by people browsing the goods. The three headed straight for the cotton stall, which was the most important purchase for the coming winter. Cotton was scarce, costing 1.80 yuan per pound. Sisters Yao and Zheng thought it was too pricey, so they each only bought a pound to patch up their kids' winter clothes. Su Yi didn't have that kind of financial restraint. She bought 7.5 pounds, planning to make 2 new padded jackets for herself. After the cotton, sisters Yao and Zheng led Su Yi to the wool. The cheapest wool was 2 yuan per pound, even more expensive than cotton. Su Yi was briefly jealous of sisters Yao and Zheng, but she hated being cold, so she had to knit herself some sweaters and long johns for winter. Besides her own, Su Yi picked out a pound of pink and a pound of gray to make new sweaters for her 2 kids. She also bought a pound of red yarn, planning to use the leftovers to knit scarves, hats, and gloves. Because they were buying so much, the three got a set of knitting needles thrown in from the cellar. With the cotton and wool secured, Su Yi started thinking about a coal stove. The army barracks didn't have fireplaces, but winter in the northwest was brutally cold and windy. People relied on coal-burning stoves to get through the season. Sisters Yao and Zheng helped Su Yi negotiate, and she snagged a brand new coal stove for 6 yuan. It was a steal, but it was just a shell. You had to plaster the inside with lus before you could use it. Don't worry about it, Xiao Su. Plastering a stove is easy. Buy it now, and my husband can do it for you later. Su Yi thanked her profusely and paid up. After those big purchases, the women picked up some linings, noodles, pork,
eggs, and other staples and hurried back. Luckily, everyone in the courtyard was busy with their own affairs when they got back. Sister Yao immediately invited the others into her yard. Since the weather's nice today, let's make Xiao Su's cotton-padded jacket and pants right here in the yard. Sui happily agreed and moved her remaining supplies to the neighboring yard. That way, she could easily pop over to Yao's place to learn how to knit sweaters in her spare time, without having to run back and forth. Since she had cleared the air with Zhou Jinchuan last time, the two weren't deliberately avoiding each other anymore. Sui would stop by to see the kids when she had time and cook them a decent meal every now and then. That morning, Sister Zheng expertly cut out the pattern for Suyi's cotton-padded jacket. Seeing that Sui was struggling, Sister Yao sat down and taught her how to knit a sweater. Sui had never knitted before, but from her ingrained knowledge, she knew that her past self had done it before. Sister Yao gave her some pointers, then confidently let her knit on her own. The three women relaxed in the sun, knitting sweaters and sewing cotton-padded jackets while chatting away, thoroughly enjoying themselves. A little after 11, Yi Xiaowu and Yi Nuanyuan came running home from school. The kids knew Sui had the day off and would be cooking something delicious for them. As soon as they entered the courtyard, they smelled the aroma of slow-cooked meat wafting from the pot, but after a quick look around, they didn't see Sui. Instead, they noticed a bunch of supplies laid out on a table in the yard. Then they heard laughter coming from the next yard. The two raced next door, yelling, "Sister Su!" Sui jumped up. "You're back early today. I'll come cook for you after I finish this row." Yi Xiaowu quickly shook his head. "Don't worry, I'll go do my homework first. Sister Su, just come back later." With that, he ran back to their house. Chapter 58. It's so fun to be friends with the rich. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Sister Yao and Sister Zheng were totally envious, saying, "Look how well-behaved Xiao Wu is, bringing his sister home from school. We never see our kids." Sui said with a smile, "Kids are like that. They always remember to do their homework after dinner, and when they're tired of playing." Then, looking at Nuan beside her, she smiled again. Nuan's great too. "Come on, let's see how you're doing knitting the edge of this sweater." Nuan carefully held the pink ball of wool. Hearing it was a sweater for her, she grinned, showing all her teeth. Sister Yao and Sister Zheng were even more envious. Nuan has such fair skin, she'll look adorable in pink. After finishing the yarn in her hand, Sui took Nuan back next door. The radish and pork stew in the pot was just about ready. Sui started the rice and then went to the garden to pick spinach for spinach meatball soup. Walking out of the garden, she bumped into Zhou Jinchuan returning. Sui looked surprised. "Captain Zhou, you're back." He usually didn't come back at noon. Zhou Jinchuan glanced at Sui, then up at Yi Xiaowu doing homework in the living room. He immediately understood. The boy had called him, saying Sui invited him back for dinner. So, he'd hung up and come straight home. After snagging a couple of fish from Lao Lu, Zhou Jinchuan shook the fish. "Lao Lu gave me these fish, and I didn't want them to spoil, so I brought them over." Sui, worried that Zhou Jinchuan coming back would mean not enough food, was happy to see the two fat fish. Then, "Captain Zhou, stay for lunch. We'll have braised fish." Zhou Jinchuan thought, "This is my home." Sui took the fish into the kitchen, planning to clean and fry them. Yi Nuanyuan came over holding Suyi's yarn basket. "Uncle Zhou, do you like the yarn Sister Su got for me?" Zhou Jinchuan looked down, surprised at how much she'd already knitted. He knew Sui went out to shop on her day off, but he hadn't realized she'd bought things for the kid. And that she'd started knitting for her first. Seeing Zhou Jinchuan wasn't angry, Yi Xiaowu ran over, happy. "I heard Sister Su say she bought a coal stove for the dorm for winter, but she doesn't know how to seal it." Zhou Jinchuan looked confused. "You do?" Yi Xiaowu grinned. "Not me, but Aunt Yao said her husband can. I'll ask Mr. Wang next door to help out in a few days." Zhou Jinchuan silently rolled up his sleeves. "Homework done?" "Yep. Come on, I'll show you how to seal that stove."
The two dug clay from the garden, then got ashes and sand to make mud. When Sui finished cooking and went to call everyone, she found Zhou Jinchuan and Yi Xiaowu squatting in the yard, covered in mud. "What are you doing?" Yi Xiaowu looked up and smiled. "Uncle Zhou and I already sealed the coal stove. Mr. Wang doesn't need to come." Sui checked and saw the new stove was indeed sealed. "Awesome. Hurry up and wash up and come eat." After receiving the compliment, Yi Xiaowu grinned and looked at Zhou Jinchuan for praise. Then he rushed off to wash. Sui, still learning to knit, was working on the top of the sweater. She finished eating and started knitting again. Yi Nuanyuan, who ate the least, finished quickly and ran over. "Sister Su, I want to learn too." Sui laughed. "You're too young. How about you help wind the yarn?" Yi Xiaowu, suddenly full, declared, "I can wind yarn. I'll work with Yi Nuanyuan." Soon Zhou Jinchuan was the only one left at the table. He finished his meal silently, cleared the dishes, and started washing them, watching the three busy in the yard through the window. The corners of his mouth turned up after they'd been busy for a while. Sui checked the time. Time to go to school. After seeing the kids off, Sui went to take her basket next door to knit. Zhou Jinchuan suddenly came out of the house. Sui jumped. "You didn't leave?" Zhou Jinchuan nodded, helpless. "I've been inside." He'd washed the dishes and gone to his study. Hadn't she seen him? Sui gave an awkward smile and pointed next door. "I'm just going to Sister Yao's." "Are you heading out too, Captain Zhou?" Zhou Jinchuan didn't answer, just waved. "Come here." Sui hesitated, then walked over. "Come over if you want to, you can't eat me." As soon as she got close, Zhou Jinchuan handed her an envelope. "This is the kids' living expenses. You keep it." Sui waved her hand. "No, the kids eat in the cafeteria, it doesn't cost much." Zhou Jinchuan looked at the yarn in her hand. "You need money to knit the sweater." "I'm using leftover money, it's enough." Zhou Jinchuan felt it was pointless to argue. He stuffed the money in her hand. "Take it." Then he went to his study and got a stack of ration coupons. "I forgot these. Use these instead of going to the black market." Sui took them and saw all sorts of coupons, even industrial ones. "Okay, I'll make a couple of padded coats for the kids after the sweaters." "Sure. If you need more, ask me." It was good to be friends with the rich. "Winter's coming. Anything else you need?" Sui, "Plenty. I was just going to ask you. Sister Yao and the others are making their own coal briquettes. Should we? I don't need much. I just can't do it outside my dorm. I'll help make them in the yard, and we can share." The word "we" made Zhou Jinchuan happy. "Okay, but you don't have to. Pick a sunny day in a couple of days and I'll get Xia Xiaojun to help." Sui, worried about not doing a good job, happily agreed. "Then I'll treat you and Xia Xiaojun to dinner." "Great. What are we having?" Sui. "What do you want?" Zhou Jinchuan rarely ordered anything. "I want that mutton hot pot from Jingshi, okay?" Sui. That was a hard dish to make. And she wanted it on a cold day. But where would she get the mutton or the pot? Seeing her face, Zhou Jinchuan smiled. "I'll get the mutton and the pot. You just cook it." "That's really not fair. I said I'd treat. You treat and I get the food. Is there a problem?" Chapter 59 Showing Off at the Door. You are listening at novelfull.audio. With Yao and Zheng's help, Sui had 2 new padded jackets in a single day. She couldn't wait to try them on. Instantly, she felt warm, inside and out. "I'm so lucky to have you both. I couldn't have done this myself." Sister Zheng chuckled. "Don't be so formal with us." They both admired Sui in her new jacket. I thought this kind of jacket would make her look like a country bumpkin, but Sue looks just as stylish as anyone in the city wearing wool. I agree, it looks fantastic, Sue grinned, a little embarrassed. You guys are the real artists. How about I treat you to dinner in town tonight? They both waved her off. Don't waste your money eating out. Besides, we already have dinner planned. This was just helping out a friend, no need for a treat. If you keep acting like this, I won't feel comfortable asking for your help next time I'm in a bind. Seeing their refusal, Sue dropped the subject. She thought to herself that once she got her dorm room settled, she'd find a way to cook them something special. The next day, Sue was back at work in the cafeteria. Before dinner, Qin Yinfeng and Bai Ruolin showed up in the kitchen. Sue wasn't sure what they wanted, and frankly, she didn't care. She pretended not to see them, but Bai Ruolin marched straight toward her. Comrade Su, Qin and I are planning to get our marriage license after New Year's, and we want to hold the reception here in the cafeteria. I hear you're a great cook. How about I talk to your boss and get you in charge of our banquet? Su Xiaoqin, who was nearby, had been watching them warily. Afraid they were going to give Sue trouble, she angrily brandished her spatula. What a nerve! Stealing someone's fiancé and then parading around like this. Sue, don't even listen to them. Let someone else do it. Don't you dare take it on. Seeing her so worked up, Sue pulled her aside and patted her back. Calm down. Why turn down free money? There's no reason to say no. Then, turning to Bai Ruolin, she said, well, thanks for thinking of me. I'm happy to do it. But you'll have to clear it with Chef Wang first. After all, we're not usually in charge of main dishes. You should talk to him yourself, so he doesn't get upset. Bai Ruolin smirked. That's not my problem. I'm just doing a favor for you and Qin, since you're from the same hometown. You guys can handle Chef Wang. She knew that Sue and Chef Wang didn't get along. Usually, with cafeteria banquets, you could charge extra for buying and preparing the food. Some of those fees went straight into the cook's pocket, off the books. If Chef Wang knew Sue was getting a piece of that action, he'd hold a grudge for sure. Why would she pass up an opportunity like that? Sue saw right through her but didn't get angry. She just smiled and said, okay, don't worry about Chef Wang. We need to discuss the labor costs beforehand. After deducting the cost of ingredients, the labor comes to 10 yuan per table. Since it's you, we'll knock off 20%, make it 8 yuan. Bai Ruolin's eyes widened in disbelief. 8 yuan a table for labor. You're robbing me, Sue smiled sweetly. You just praised my cooking skills. Surely you can afford 8 yuan. Otherwise, it's not worth my time. Bai Ruolin glared at Qin Yinfeng. She's ripping us off. She's doing this on purpose. Qin Yinfeng hesitated. Forget it. Let's not force her if she doesn't want to do it. Besides, she's just started in the cafeteria and hasn't found her footing yet. This might be too much for her. We should just ask Chef Wang. Sue chuckled. Sounds good. I'll try to make it to the wedding. Bai Ruolin couldn't stand her smug expression. In a moment of hot-headedness, she blurted out, I heard you got a single dorm room, but Qin and I are getting a whole courtyard soon. You should come visit after we're married. Sue offered a tight smile. Congratulations. That's wonderful. Then she changed the subject. If Aunt Qin and Sister Qin find out, they'll be so proud. You should have them come up after the new year and let them see how well you're doing. They can help you settle in. Bai Ruolin had only meant to show off. She hadn't expected Sue to bring up the Qin family so quickly. Her face fell. Sue seized the moment. What's wrong? Did I say something wrong? You don't want your mother-in-law and sister-in-law to come and help you? Bai Ruolin glanced at Qin Yinfeng, then forced a smile. Don't be ridiculous. We haven't even moved in yet. It's too early to talk about that. We'll see. Hearing that, Qin Yinfeng relaxed a little. That's right. I'll ask them what they think when I go home for the spring festival. Bai Ruolin could tell from his tone that he was considering it. Furious, she threw her hands up and stormed off. Qin Yinfeng hurried after her. Didn't you say you were going to talk to Chef Wang about the banquet? Bai Ruolin twisted her hands in frustration. This should be a happy thing, but Sui had to ruin it. I'm not in the mood anymore. Why is she so annoying? Qin Yinfeng frowned. You were the one who wanted to ask her about the banquet. Besides, the housing thing isn't set in stone yet. Where are we going to be assigned? You shouldn't say things like that just yet. We might not get a whole courtyard. Bai Ruolin was dismissive. Of course we will. I asked Political Commissar Wang, and he said it was no problem. Qin Yinfeng sighed. But it's not official yet. If you talk about it too soon, people will gossip and cause problems. Bai Ruolin's face flushed with anger. What does it matter if it's official? If you'd gotten promoted sooner, I wouldn't have to ask for favors. Qin Yinfeng's expression darkened. You know exactly why I was passed over. It wasn't just my fault. There's no point in bringing it up now. Bai Ruolin bit her lip. Fine, whatever. The New Year's party is coming up soon. I'm doing a violin solo as the finale. Leader Deng said if I perform well, he'll recommend me for a promotion. Once that happens, we can definitely get that courtyard. Chapter 60, Registration for Performance Program. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Qin Yinfeng paused, then nodded. Alright, then you better practice hard. Leave the banquet to me, I'll figure something out. Bai Ruolin beamed, nodding happily. Also, we need to get a move on decorating the new place. It might be too late after we get it. We should buy stuff now and stash it in your dorm. Qin Yinfeng looked a little sheepish. Okay, but money's a bit tight right now. How about we just clean it up and buy things slowly when we've got more cash? Don't worry, I won't let you suffer, now that we're married. Bai Ruolin pouted, looking put out. But I already told Sui I'd invite her and everyone over for fun. It'll be embarrassing if it's too dumpy. They argued outside for a good while, unable to agree. Finally, Bai Ruolin, seeing she was getting nowhere, agreed to let him use her own savings for now. She also promised to write home and ask her family for money. No matter how unhappy she was, she wouldn't let Sui laugh at her. Sui, meanwhile, had no clue that the two of them were wrangling and emptying their wallets because of her. As usual, they were swamped at lunch, selling out all their ingredients, and were just about to pack up and head home when Master Ma sent someone to call the three of them to a meeting in the back. When Sui and the others walked in, they found everyone looking gloomy. They exchanged glances and quietly found a spot to sit. Master Ma saw them and stood up. Okay, now that everyone's here, let's decide who's performing at the New Year's Eve party. Sui was taken aback. Isn't the New Year's Eve party the art troupe's thing? Why does the cafeteria have to perform? Master Ma sighed. Yeah, well, this year they want all departments to participate. Everyone protested. What kind of sense does that make? What are a bunch of us guys going to do? Yeah, whose bright idea was this? Who else? The art troupe, that's who. They want to drag us amateurs on stage to make themselves look good. If we had that kind of talent, we'd be in the art troupe. Why would we be stuck here? Exactly. That's their job. Why should it be our problem? Why don't they come and cook for us for a change? Complaints erupted. Master Ma tried to calm them down, but it was no use. He slammed his hand on the table. Enough. What's the point of griping? Either go complain to the art troupe, or pick a routine. It's just going through the motions. I'm not expecting anyone to win any awards. Sui perked up. There are awards. Everyone went silent. Master Ma smiled and nodded. Yep. They're picking the best performances.
First prize is a wool blanket, second prize is a wool scarf, and third prize is a fountain pen. I heard they're all top-notch stuff from Shanghai. The blankets are thick and soft, real wool. Suyi's eyes lit up. She was worried her dorm quilt wasn't thick enough. But singing was just a hobby, and she wasn't sure if she was good enough, so she decided to keep quiet for now and see what everyone else said. The news of the prizes excited everyone at first, but then reality set in. Only 3 awards. What's that got to do with us? The art troupe will snag them all. Right, it's just a formality, to make them look good. Seeing everyone's reluctance, Master Ma turned to Sui and the others. You're young. Want to give it a shot? Zhang Tianhua immediately shook his head. No way, I don't know anything, and I get stage fright. Su Shaoqin looked embarrassed. I learned the Hulusi from the educated youth in my village, but I'm not very good. It would be embarrassing to go on stage. Sui smiled. I can sing a few tunes, but I'm nothing special. It would be embarrassing for the whole cafeteria. Master Ma tried to encourage them. Just getting up there would be good. At least the cafeteria won't be empty. Chef Wang, seeing that Sui and Su Shaoqin were backing down and looked like they really couldn't do it, changed his tune immediately. Then it's settled, those 2 are doing it. We only have 2 young women in the cafeteria. They're the most suitable. The others agreed. Yeah, those 2 female comrades are the face of our cafeteria. Just go up there and sing a couple of songs. Seeing that everyone was determined to pick 2 people, Sui rubbed her hands, feeling awkward. It's fine for us to go on stage, but could we get a little something extra to encourage us to sacrifice for the collective? Chef Wang scoffed. What more do you 2 want? Sui smiled. Not much. Could we get a day off after the party? Master Ma thought for a moment, then nodded. Okay, you get a day off. How about the day Deputy Company Commander Qin has his wedding reception? They invited a ton of people that day, so the cafeteria window won't be so busy. Sui agreed happily. Deal. That day it is. With the performers chosen, everyone dispersed. Su Shaoqin nervously grabbed Suyi's arm. Are we really going to perform on stage? Sui nodded. I figured, worst case, it's embarrassing. But at least the 3 of us get a day off. And who knows, we might even win a prize if we do well. Su Shaoqin wasn't confident at all. Have you thought about what to sing? Sui thought about what songs were popular in the 1980s. Then she cleared her throat and sang 2 lines of Navalport Night. Su Shaoqin and Zhang Tianhua were stunned. Wow, you sing really well. I've never heard you sing before. Yeah, Sister Sui, you were way too modest. You should have signed up right away. Sui smiled. Didn't you see the look on Chef Wang's face? If he knew we had a secret weapon, he never would have given us this chance. Su Shaoqin grinned. That's right. If you don't mind, I'll practice this song like crazy for the next couple of days, then I'll back you up and try not to drag you down. Sui hugged her arm and smiled. Okay, then let's go sign up now, before it's too late and all the good songs are taken. They went to the art troupe together and successfully signed up. After everyone left, the young comrade in charge of keeping score went to find Bai Ruolin and told her about Suyi's registration. Bai Ruolin was stunned for a moment, then she called Qin Yunfeng. Brother Qin, can Suyi sing? Qin Yunfeng was also surprised. Sing. She's been tone-deaf her whole life. She can't sing. Bai Ruolin felt relieved and specifically asked to put Suyi's performance before her solo. She was going to make Suyi a laughingstock. She'd show Qin Yunfeng the difference between her and Suyi. As for the first prize wool blanket, she was determined to win it, just in time to use it as part of her dowry.